Hey guys, welcome back to Trapping Unicorns. I'm your host, Kendra Beavis, and in this episode is like straight up magical. If you're someone who's ever felt called to do something bigger, even though it's scary, if you've ever questioned your identity when life maybe pulled the rug out from under you, or if you're navigating your own spiritual awakening and wondering how to do it responsibly, listen in because we are talking with the fabulous Gina Starbuck, a performer turned energy healer, embodiment guide, medicine woman, and retreat leader. Gina's journey from performing on stages around the world to leading people through deep soul work is absolutely inspiring. And the way that she holds space for both the magic and the messiness of being human is something everyone needs to hear that's just starting their spiritual journey or struggling with how to live in both spaces in a real, honest way. So let's dive in, grab a cup of coffee. Here we go. Hey, Gina. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I feel like I must belong in the tribe of unicorns.
Oh, absolutely. So we connected on social media and I binged your content and I was showing my husband like all of it on the phone. I'm like, oh, this woman, I can't wait to talk to her. She's so cool. I love your vibe. I think everything that you're doing and have done is so interesting. So I would just love to start with like, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you are and we can kind of get into your past roles and who you are today and what you're working on today.
Sure. Okay. This is a loaded question here.
I know.
Where am I? I'm currently in Los Angeles, California, where I have been living for, 20 some odd years now in this area. I have a beautiful daughter, a 9-year-old little girl who I'm a mama to, and a couple of dogs and a cat and my partner, my daughter's dad. I do travel a lot, most often for retreats, leading retreats all over the world. I'm going to be going to Egypt in just a couple of weeks.
Yes. I can't wait to talk
Yes.
about that.
And, I've spent a lot of my lifetime, especially my early adult life, also traveling the world, but more so as a performer, dancer, choreographer, doing various tours and shows and teaching jobs sort of all over the world. And around the time, I would say I was like in my late 20s, I'm in my early 40s now, I had just been doing so much in the
Yeah.
industry. And I sort of started to get these downloads like something's going to change, something's changing. It was like that, when you can feel a storm rolling in, it was like almost ominous for me. But in that, there were these little blips of like intuitive knowing that sort of kept guiding me in the direction of like this teacher and this mentor and find this modality. And even around that time, I started traveling, but not just for work. I went to Bali, I went to Malta. I started getting called to sacred sites at that time to start to sort of like gather pieces of myself and to have these initiations. And fast forward to today, I am still traveling the world, still dancing, still choreographing, but more so sharing the embodiment pieces and the creative expression pieces as a tool, a modality for liberation, for self-discovery, for healing, and really to help support mostly women I work with. But I also work with all genders at various times. But it's really about this like coming home journey and coming
Yeah.
home and also feeling really safe and alive in the like experience of letting yourself loose, like letting your
Yeah.
soul emerge through your life, through your body, through your creation. So it's been quite a journey, but that's kind of like the short.
Yeah. The truncated version. So, I mean, you had or still have a great career as a performer. Was that scary for you when you started getting these downloads and everything could possibly change, everything that you've worked for? How did that feel?
It was something like it was an initiation, like a death and rebirth cycle that really happened over time. But the short answer to your question is yes, it was definitely scary. And there were moments where I was like very surrendered to it. And then there were moments where I was very resistant. And what I really realized in that process, which sort of had its like final unraveling when I became a mom, and I had some challenges with my birth, which created some health challenges and some emotional challenges. And, anyone who's become a mom knows that it is a whole ass initiation and life change in
Yeah.
itself. But, I think for me, what had started to happen in the industry is that I had become I was definitely still, I think I've sort of always maintained this very like authentic, this is who I am. I know who I am. I've never questioned who I am. But so many people sort of learned a version of me that they really loved, that they really exalted, that they really counted on for their own benefit, maybe, which is not a negative thing. But when you start to sort of evolve out of that version or transcend or become something else. But you've got like a whole world of humans who are kind of holding you in that identity. It can become this like internal battle. And then you start to look at like so much of my value and my orientation to myself and who I was and who I am was so tied into Gina the performer, Gina the choreographer, Gina the dance icon, whatever we want to call it, that when I was like, I don't know that I want to be doing this anymore or things are changing, it's like, how do you maintain your value in the world was like a big question that I had to really look at and examine and be with. So
How
yes, it
did
was
you figure
definitely
that out? Like what did you come to? Because it is I mean, so many things about what you just said are really, standing out. Like having a role that you play in other people's lives. Um, that's a whole topic just there. But I think, the courage to stand up and say like this is really not who I am anymore and I'm going to take a step in this direction and if everyone's going to follow, great. And if they're not, then I release all of that and that's fine too. How did you give yourself that? Where did you find the courage?
I think in some ways I found the courage and in some ways I was forced into the courage. There were so
Mm,
many things that happened around that time and this like sort of identity changeover that I really had no control over. Like I felt them coming, but they were like such interesting, wild, like rug getting pulled out from under me kinds of moments that started to happen. It's funny, I'm feeling into something that's kind of been occurring now in my world. It's definitely not the same, but there's just some things that have been happening like in the back end of my business that have been like a little bit shocking and surprising. And it's like one of those things. It's like when the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, when you get surprised, when someone miscommunicates or you get rejected or whatever it is, right? Like you can choose. You can choose
right.
to let it take you out and that's okay. There's medicine in that too. And I've done that at various times in my life. You can choose to go into the mud and the muck and let yourself roll around in it and get overcome with fear, anxiety, whatever. Or you can just say, okay, this is happening. Like, what is the gift? What is this pointing me toward? Because if I can't go back there, if I could try, but if I can't, it doesn't it doesn't support me in any way to do anything but just choose a direction and start to move. And for me, this is like always sort of the remedy. I don't want to say always because sometimes we need to sit with things, but it's like the
Yeah.
movement. Like where am I going? And if it's wrong, fine. Like if I decide I'm going to go this way and then I hit a block in the road, I can always redirect. But if I'm not moving, I'm not moving. And so yeah, I think for me, it was just a lot of just redirection. Like, all right, let me try this thing.
Isn't Isn't it always kind of funny how like the universe will, we think one thing and like I know myself, I've tried to like push so hard on something that like I've invested so much time into or, whatever it is. And like at my core, I know this is not the right path, but I'm already so pot committed. I've, made this huge show of all this work and all this time. And then the universe just says, well, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it for you. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden it just all blows up and you're like, okay, well, fine.
Yes, absolutely. That happens all the time. And I like to think of it lately as like the creative process. Like I think about as a choreographer when I was doing it like full time for a job, I did it for a job, but I also did it just because I loved it. Like I was
Yeah.
so immersed in the creative process. And I think gosh, at least 50% of everything I ever created as a choreographer didn't do anything. It didn't get seen. I wasn't getting paid for it, whatever, but I was doing it because I loved it. And so I like to bring that into my business now, that it's like, okay, if I do build out this, we've probably all done this where we built out an entire program and then nobody buys it. And you're like, wait, what? But then I go,
Yeah.
cool, like I got to create this thing. And I love creation just for the sake of creation. I mean, of course, as creators, we all deserve to be paid and well taken care of and abundant and in that flow with our creations. And though, like, even if you think about like some of the greatest artists in history, it's like the greatest songwriters, they might have like
Yeah.
a couple of hits, but they wrote hundreds of other songs. It's like it's just part of the nature of creation. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you just got to keep creating.
Yeah, yeah. So many times I've, or just not release something because something else has come up that makes me feel like, you know what, this isn't the right direction or the right thing to release or the right time to release it either. I've been working on my book for probably the past 12 years. And I don't recommend that. Don't do that, but take action quicker than that. But I also realized that because all this time has passed, it has turned into something so much better than I had originally thought it was going to be. So there's like that universal timing too, that it's kind of a pain to wait for, but also, trusting when you feel like this has to marinate. There's something here that's not quite ready yet. And, I trying to listen to that voice too, because, I love that saying, redirection is protection. So, I've quite a few times been redirected in my life, and always, every single time when I look back, it was to lead me to something even better.
Yes, absolutely. And I really feel like it really does all have its purpose.
Yeah, right. You learn something, or you pick up another person that helps you on your journey. There's always something that it was purposeful for.
Yeah, well, and we can't always see. I've been like really in this inquiry lately around just the notion of timelessness. And I've
Mm,
been like so aware of my own timelessness because I did, after my daughter was born, I sort of tried to keep dancing, choreographing, doing all the same stuff, and very quickly learned like this really isn't working. And I just took like a big step back. I never stopped dancing for my own benefit, but I wasn't immersed in the industry. And now I'm sort of in this era of like reintegrating, not in the ways I was before, but I'm just more in the dance communities and in the industry spaces. And it's like literally everywhere I go, somebody, at least one person, comes up to me to tell me what an impact I or my work had on them. And oftentimes it's like, that was 15 years ago when I was 12 years old, or, that was, it's like way back. And it's like so beautiful to think about how much, like, not just our creations, but like who we are at any given moment has the potential to continue to like ripple out if we can be so fully expressed in who we are and in our gifts and in our medicine and in our aliveness and in our divine alignment, right? It's
yeah,
like you're not limited then to, I created this one show or I had this one program and the people that were in that moment, that blip in time, they all got the gift of that. But it's like, no, it's the gift that keeps on giving and it will keep carrying itself like on and on and on. And this concept has really helped me anchor into deeper trust also, because
mm,
it's like when you can just see kind of the full spectrum spiral of how
yeah,
all the things that you are doing, all of the pieces of your journey can
yeah.
be a gift to the collective. Why would I like, why would I be anything but trusting?
Yeah. Where do you feel like your responsibility lies in being a part of this earth, this time period, and sharing your knowledge and your gifts? Because you do work with people one on one to help them rediscover themselves. Why is that important to you? And where did you come to that?
Wow, that's a really deep question. I feel like it has been an impulse that I have carried with me through my entire life. Like there has always been this sort of like fire underneath me through every season. I mean, even when I've been like deep down in the dumps, it's like maybe we might call it God or we might call it my own soul or a combination of both. But it's like there's just this knowing, like that I am here to move forward everyone, including myself. And there used to be sort of a sense of pressure on me
Mhm.
around that. And I do have it come up once in a while, like this kind of feeling like, oh my God, there's so much to do. And I only have this one life to do it because I also
Yeah.
feel this is like a sidebar. I believe that we have many, many, many lifetimes.
Uh-huh.
And
100%.
I, yes, I have always felt though that this lifetime is probably my last one here on earth. And I've even had, like, even when I was in my like late teens, early 20s, I had like psychics and mentors and people say this to me. Like they were affirming, like, oh yeah, this is your last time on earth. Like this is a completion cycle.
Yeah.
And I really do still feel that. But anyway, this is a very long winded response.
No, no, I love that topic.
Yeah, I think, I do feel a sense of responsibility. And so I want to always like honor the fact that as a soul, I did sign up for this.
Right.
At the same time, I just really, at this point in my life, am doing my very best to just delight in it. Like what a
Mm,
gift that I get the
right.
opportunity to share this wisdom, to share this embodiment, to share these things that I love so much anyway,
Yeah.
with other humans.
I feel like, and I don't know how you would, I would guess that you're probably going to feel the same thing. But for me, I feel like this timeline or this time period, there's so many people that are here and their mission is to kind of wake everybody up, spark this fire, because there needs to be a major shift. And I feel like a lot of souls have come back to this specific time to do just that. So I also believe I've lived many lives. I don't know if this is my last one or if I'm here and I've timey-wimey stuff kind of, I'm all over the place, but I feel like there's a major importance to my mission in this lifetime. And it doesn't like make me feel pressure. It is exciting. And I feel like, there are things that I think people like us don't like, and we don't like things that we see. And I think we're all kind of being activated to make this beautiful shift happen in like the most, not subtle, but like you're the ripple that creates the ripple that creates the ripple. Like we're not like hammering in, like, this is how you should live. It's just a way of adding light where it needs to be added right now. Do you kind of feel that too?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. This is such a pivotal time on the planet. One of my friends described it this way. She was talking about like something specific, but this is like stuck with me a lot because we were talking about like kind of how some people feel this impulse to like sort of fight the bad. We'll just say it that way, right? Like we can just chunk it all up to bad, the
Sure.
things that we don't like. And she was saying like she really feels that it's more effective, like if there is something really terrible sort of living in this paradigm, just build something that is light, that is in like, the same arena, but is a completely different like resonance, and just build that pillar alongside this other pillar. And just naturally, things are going to be sort of more compelled and drawn toward the lightness. And that really stuck with me. I've
Absolutely.
never really been one to, like you said, like, I think some people are meant to really fight the
Yeah.
things for,
I'm not a fighter. I'm a,
yeah,
I'm a lighter.
yes, I think I have a lot of fight in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, my attention, I am much more effective in my soul mission if I can just sort of, attune myself to anchoring into more pleasure, more joy, more beauty, more love,
Yes.
more connection, and just trust that like everything's always seeking balance, right? This is what one of my mentors says, like everything in nature seeks balance. If something's way out of harmony, toward the negative, just bring in, like, calibrate it the opposite direction and things will
Right.
start to balance out. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to, like, bypass what's actually happening or,
Right.
life itself. I'm not like living up in the clouds. I'm very grounded and present in the reality, but there's just different approaches. And I really do feel like if we can all sort of live into these sort of lighter, brighter
Yeah.
ways, things will change. I mean, it's not just woo, it's science. Like there are
No,
studies
yeah.
like monks who've gone into cities with high crime rates and they just meditate for a day and then the crime rates go down. Like this stuff actually does work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and happier people make happier people, like,
Yeah.
at the basis of it. How do you balance like real life, right? We're grounded, we're having a human experience with the magic that you can feel when you're connected and experiencing, Egyptian meditation in front of a pyramid.
Whew,
How do you do both?
that's a good question. I don't think it's balance. Like I think to
You're
try
in or out?
to balance is like I don't know. I feel like really just leaning into the experience as it is for me is the most beneficial thing to do. So if I'm all the way in a, multi-dimensional deactivation, I can just live all the way into that. And if I'm stepping in cat shit and having to clean it off my foot, I can just live into that and just like, for me at this point, I feel like it's just all part of the ebb and flow and like the holiness of life. And, just trying to see as much of it as I can as ceremony has been helpful to me. Like I know people do talk about like life is a ceremony. And sometimes you're like, when you're in the like harder
Yeah.
pieces of just humaning, you're like, please shut up. I don't want to hear that. But
Right. Exactly.
and I really do my best to kind of live into that truth because I genuinely do believe like it's all perfect, you know? And I actually feel like there's this sort of humbling happening within the spiritual communities right now that is so necessary. Where like
Yeah.
so many people were feeling for a while like this sort of glorified flight response, right? Like I don't want to live in the 3D matrix anymore. I'm going to just go away and I'm going to build a commune and I'm going to like just unplug from the system, And I completely understand that impulse. I've had that and it's like, no, actually we have work to do. So we're going to need to take all this big beautiful light and these like higher dimensional experiences and put them all the way into the 3D
Yeah.
matrix.
Yeah. So I love a good juicy meditation. I love connecting with guides and my loved ones who've passed on and all that stuff. But you're right. Like at the same time, like, I've got my teenagers outside the door and, life is happening and I can't just live there all the time. But it certainly is quite incredibly not only fun, but I learn so much every time I, go to those places. And I think, um, it's one of the main reasons to do it. Learn more about yourself, learn more about people and what you can do and why you're here. I love Akashic Records and I know you teach Akasha how I don't know how to put what you do with Akashic Records.
So,
Yes.
um, I have a lineage, a healing lineage that has, been gifted to me from source called the Embodied Akashic Healing. It's a combination of like many modalities that I have studied and practiced and been initiated in along the way. But the Akashic Records are sort of like the main entry point to the modality, but it's very unique in that one of the teachings that I have been so blessed to learn by one of my incredible teachers and mentors and soul sisters, Amma Sophia Rose, is called the Dove Codex. And within the Dove Codex, it's all about singing the songs of creation. So using your voice to access the wisdom of your ancestors, the wisdom of creator, the Divine Feminine Codex. And within that teaching, she taught us how to sing into the Akashic Records. And this is
Yeah.
something that as I was learning, like her teaching, I was like, I've already been doing this. I just wasn't calling it that, like so much of my work is through the voice, through song, through sound, bringing through what a lot of people call light language. And it was really happening to me and through me before I had like a mental cognitive understanding of what was going on. And I sort of always knew because I've been a Reiki master for, I don't know, 12, 13 years, but I started practicing Reiki as a 6-year-old little girl because I grew up next door to someone who was a Reiki practitioner. So Reiki's always been a huge part of my work. And I for a while I was teaching and attuning people in Reiki, which was beautiful, but I always knew like when I facilitate, it's never just Reiki. It's never
Right.
just an Akashic Records healing.
It's all.
It's like a visceral combination of everything. And so the embodied Akashic healing is really helping people to learn how to facilitate this sort of multi-layered visceral healing experience, but it also makes space for the unique gifts of the facilitator, where like if we're just looking at Reiki, like, very traditional foundational Reiki, it's a very specific blueprint. This is how you facilitate. And, there is some space for practitioners to move energy in their own unique ways. But this to me just feels more open, and so I'm teaching
Yeah.
people how to read the Akashic Records, how to work with the Akashic Records, but most importantly, how to embody the Akasha. So you like kind of learn where the Akashic field lives within you and how you can sort of access through your body, your voice, and the
Yeah.
record and move things around. It's very visceral and tricky to explain, but that's the best I got for you today.
Yeah, I've never, like in my head, Akashic Records are like, this interdimensional space that looks like a library and you have a librarian. I've only like journeyed to them once with a teacher of mine, but um, it, uh, I guess what Akasha in you, I don't know what that really means.
Yeah. So, the Akasha, as it's known, is like what you said. It's this sort of interdimensional library where, it's like a record. It's the
Yeah.
records, the Akashic records, where sort of all of the information, across all timelines is sort of stored and kept. But with that, right, they are ever shifting because choice point to choice point, right, things kind of move and shift. And within that space, you can go in and ask the guardians and the gatekeepers for permission to look at things and sort of recode and rewrite things. And my experience going into the Akasha is that, yes, I can connect with them as this like interdimensional space, this library. But if I am, as a soul in a body, connected to all there is, my body has infinite access to all dimensions, all realities, all timelines, all information, right? And so it's just a different way of going in. It's like an
Huh.
internal access point as opposed to like reaching out and bringing the information down. You're actually going in to bring the
Oh,
information out.
that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
for me, of all the things I have done and studied, like when I really started to, I don't even want to say understand because that's not it. Like, it's not a mental thing for me. But when I started to embody this way, it just really, really changed things for me. And I remember very distinctly when I was having my training with Alma Sophia for the Dev Codec, we did so much singing. And the assignments were like, very specific. But I have worked with psychedelics and plant medicines, and I was like going into these like 10-15 minute Akashic sound journeys to go into my own records through my own body and through my voice. And I was having these, like, I was coming out and taking like 10 pages of notes as if I just sat a whole night of ayahuasca. Like, it was
Wow.
so wild. And I was just like, how is everyone not doing this stuff? But the answer is, I believe that everyone can meet this
Yeah.
energy powerfully. And, you know, it's similar to like a plant medicine. You do need to be ready to some degree. It's not quite
Yeah.
as, from my experience of many psychedelics, it's not destabilizing in that same way because you're not having like the physical having to process the medicine, but it can be quite confronting and like, timelines altering and very, very, very big shifts can occur. And so, you've got to be ready and or have a very trusted guide
Wide.
and facilitator to help you to sort of integrate and process everything that comes through.
What has been like the biggest or most shocking revelation you've had from your experience with all of that?
I'm just
Like,
laughing.
was there one like, holy crap, I cannot believe,
I mean, I don't know if it was a revelation.
or experience, like just something cool?
The one that's coming to me is just that I feel like when I drank ayahuasca for the first time. I had this experience of I essentially became my grandmother's mother and I like relived her death. And in the journey, I was literally saying out loud, I'm dying. I'm dying. And I knew I wasn't. I had like enough awareness and I was being held
Yeah.
so powerfully that like I knew that wasn't actually what was happening. But it was wild because for about like a year or two after that, I was being sort of shown outside of the medicine ceremonies. Like I didn't have to drink any more medicine. I was just in my own meditations and my own practices and my own space. I was being, like, initiated into being, like, a death doula, but I was having
Mm.
to, like, relive death traumas. So after
Yeah.
that, I went into my dad's death, and I actually viscerally felt, like, the moment of his it was very I don't need to get into the graphic of it,
Yeah.
but it was that, and then I was shown this, like, time where, like, basically like a witch hunt, and I was, like, reliving
Mhm.
that trauma, not just of my own, but, like, many, many, many women from this witch hunt, and it was just, like, thing after thing after thing with death, and it was, like, this wild I don't even wanna call it a fascination because there was a part of me that was like, "I don't wanna do this, like,
Yeah.
I don't wanna be seeing all of this." But it was like I
Yeah.
had to touch all of these moments to have, like, a deeper understanding of, like, the transition, and I was being invited to recode those things and make those things more pure and, like, healthy
Mhm.
and, like, just kind of get those, like, traumatic stamps off my lineage. But
Interesting.
yeah, but then shortly after that, my partner's mom ended up passing and transitioning, and I wasn't the only one, but I was a part of her transition, and I was, like, actually in the physical then being invited to help to facilitate this transition and to help it to not be so traumatic for her, and I was
Yeah.
singing the Dove Codex to her and the songs of
Oh.
creation and, like, kind of walking her through. Speaking of timelessness, right? It's like sometimes when we're in the medicine ceremony 2 years prior, reliving these deaths and then touching them, we don't really know, "Oh, because I'm gonna have to know, like, really know how to support this transition for this human that I love, like, here in the flesh." So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
How beautiful.
Yeah, that was a pretty intense it's
Yeah.
process. I don't know that I would call it, like, a revelation, but it was a big
Right,
process.
right. Yeah. What do you think or what do you wish people knew about energy and healing that maybe is a misconception or that you hear a lot?
There's so many things. I feel like I want to speak to the fact that like if we really zoom out and or go all the way in, either way we end up at the same place. But it's like, I genuinely hold the belief that everyone actually already is healed and well and holy.
Yes.
We're just remembering that. And I do want people to know that it doesn't have to be so painful. Like, I think right now in the world, there are a lot of people waking up to their empathic nature, waking up to their metaphysical gifts. And with that, I often see like this glorification of the pain of that. And I'm not saying it's not painful because it can be, but it really just depends on how you approach it and like what kind of intentions you have and what kind of boundaries you have with the process and
Yeah.
who's supporting you, like who's helping to hold the space, like are you alone in this? Are you getting off on the pain of it? And that's okay,
Mhm.
like sometimes people just go in, they get out of this other dark toxic habit and then they become addicted to healing. And then what are you
Yeah.
even doing when you're addicted to just hunting after ways to make yourself better all the time? And so
Right.
I think right now that's just kind of like where I'm at. And I also feel like we've got to not forget our humanity in it
Yeah.
because a lot of times people have their quote unquote awakening, right? And I put it in quotes because it's like, what are we even talking about? And then they reject their humanity. They
Mm.
reject the parts of them that are less desirable or could be considered less evolved or whatever. And to me, that's actually not healing then.
Right,
And I don't
right.
yeah, and I think everyone's journey is unique, and I have certainly exiled pieces of myself for years. months, days, whatever. And now that I am in a position where I so often teach people, I'm sort of always doing my best to remind people like, you can bring your whole self on this
Yeah.
journey. You
Yeah.
do not
Yeah.
have to reject any part of you in order to achieve this or that thing that you're seeking.
I think it's a question of like perception. How do you see the things that you don't like? And maybe if you kind of try and shift for the way you're seeing them and love them in a way that, how did this help me? There are definitely versions of myself in the past that I was like, ugh, well, that was not my best. But, I also realize now, like, I needed that. I needed her at that time so that I could be who I am now. So, like, thank you for that. But I mean, is it always fun? No. But, I think that allows us to release any guilt or shame or anything we had about maybe a past who we were. I'm a recovering alcoholic and, that was not my best time. And I definitely was holding a lot of guilt and shame around my actions during then. And I don't love, I say healing all the time, but I think it's really more just growing up, growing into your next level. I think everything is there as like a building block and a layer. And like, you're this like sedimentary um, soul that all of these things, they never go away, but they are there and you are who you are because of them. So, I think and like one of the things that I think is really important that you mentioned is support because when I first started hearing spirit, whatever, I was so freaking confused. I had no idea what it was, why this was happening, I didn't even recognize them as voices. They just were like these scrambled thoughts that I didn't get what was happening. And I remember telling somebody about it and I just said, I just feel like my head is spaghetti. And she guided me to who's my teacher now. And it just changed everything. And then through her, I was able to meet this community of people that are all very real about all of this. I think if I had met people that we need to do this in like a certain outfit on a Himalayan mountain and while super fun, I think the realness of it is what I was craving and found. And that was so exciting. And I love that you're kind of doing that too. You're building this community with your retreats and bringing people together. It's just such beautiful work. Is that sort of the genesis of your retreats and why you started that?
I have always had just a deep love for people. Like I just like love people. Like I legitimately adore humans and human connection and it just like lights me up so much. And I don't know that when I started doing the retreats, it was like specifically me seeing like a need for community or supportive spaces. It was more just like actually my first retreat happened 6 years ago now in Bali, and I co facilitated with my now former business partner, Elise. And at that point, Elise and I were both doing energy work and coaching and things. And I know she had led a couple of retreats. And I just was like in a yoga class one day. And during the Shavasana, I just got this download. I was like, you're going to do a retreat in Bali with Elise. And I called her and she was like, I'm down, let's go. And we just like threw it together and it was so magical and so powerful. And I think in that space, feeling the community, feeling the sisterhood, feeling like just the real power of what it means to be in a safe space and container and explore these things together. It was like, oh yeah, this is really beautiful. But I had always some semblance of that in dance and in teaching dance. And,
Yeah.
it was like traveling all over the world, most of the time teaching classes of like literally hundreds of students and watching them not just learn from me, but learn from each other. And so I think that's kind of always been there. But
Hmm.
I think you touched on this thing that can happen for people in the beginning when like your gifts are first activating and feeling that like scramble and what is happening. And I'm so glad you found your teacher and your community because it's so, so, so important. And I do see people, I've seen actually quite a few people lately because I think there's something happening right now where like people are waking up faster and faster to their gifts. And that's on purpose. But it's like sometimes people are so scrambled about it that they're going into this weird like cave where it's like, oh, let me just go
Yeah.
into my own world and figure it out. And nobody else can have access to this, this space. And then they're just like spiraling. Not that you can't, right? Like people can go into their own world and sort it out. But I have been doing this work for a long time now. And I think more often than not, having at least one person who has walked the path, maybe a little
Yeah.
ahead of you. Not that there's any hierarchy, but someone who can just like mirror to you, like, this is what's happening. You're not going crazy. Here's what worked for me. Or if they're, an intuitive, here's what I'm feeling can work for you, can be so beneficial. And I feel, if we want to touch on responsibility again, I feel it is the more responsible thing to do to have support because
Yeah.
also, I know for me early on, when my like witchy magic gifts were really, really, really activating in that cycle of like my late 20s, I was just so excited. And I was so aware of how quickly and easily I could like move energy around that, I didn't do well, it's all relative. I was gonna say I didn't do anything too terrible, but it's all relative. But I think I was just a little bit too sort of like loose and not really contained with
Yeah.
my gifts and how I was showing up and wanting to share with people. And it's like
Yeah.
it actually can be a little bit dangerous when you're like not properly trained and you're opening up someone's energy field and you're moving shit around. Even if your
Yeah.
intentions are really pure, it still can be dangerous. And so I'm always like, get a
And kind of
mentor.
rude.
Yeah. I mean,
I think asking permission and like not just throw, because I've had that where people just throw stuff at me, and they've done it spiritually, they've done it in like more practical ways too. I had met a designer one time. I'm a trained my history, my real life, training is graphic design. And I remember I met this young designer once and I had been in the business maybe 10 years. And she goes, I'm going to redo your logo for you. And I was like, wait, what? Are you kidding me? And I've had the same thing with like readings. Like somebody will just come up to me like, your grandmother said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
yeah,
Me and my gram have a thing.
it's so out of integrity. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter
Yeah. I
where
know they're
people,
excited, but like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like we've all done
Teachers
it.
are so helpful.
Yeah, but I'm even speaking to like when people give you consent, if people do give you
Yeah.
consent to lay hands
Yeah.
on them or do energy work, but you're not properly trained, like it can
Right.
it can stir up a lot of stuff. And I think that that's
Yeah.
happening more than we even know in the like spiritual communities these days.
Sure.
People who are well intentioned, who actually do have a lot of gifts, but just aren't properly trained, who are,
Right.
moving a lot of things around that maybe they
Yeah.
are not ready to be moving around.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't, energy healing is sort of outside of my wheelhouse, but when it comes to like misreading, I see that a lot where you get something and then you're like, "Oh, it's blah blah blah." And meanwhile like actually he totally misinterpreted the message. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn, before you can start really standing up and telling people like this is what I'm seeing, hearing, feeling. Because it's just there's so much.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and this is why it's also important, I feel, like as a facilitator to know that like you are not the ultimate authority on anyone's truth or reality,
No.
no matter how clear the download feels. And I share this with everybody I ever work with that like, you are the ultimate authority on your life,
Yeah.
your belief system. I am doing my best to interpret, to channel, like I'm pretty good at it. And like if something doesn't land, it doesn't resonate for you, then
Yeah.
great. Like
You
you
don't have
can,
to. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
totally.
Yeah.
Those are like such important pieces to touch on. And I think for people who are receiving too, and I have to do this myself sometimes, like even just recently I had someone kind of new to my world that I went to for support that, obviously I trusted. Otherwise I wouldn't have went to them for support. But they said something to me like sort of in the vein of like, if you do not do this, this will
Mm.
never change. And I'm just like, wait, hold on. Like I work in these realms and I know that
Yeah.
there is no, like, absolute. I feel like if anyone's
No.
ever telling you, like, "You cannot have this without this," or "This is the only way to this," then I would really assess that
Step away.
because, yeah, there's just so many timelines that are available to all of us.
Yeah. So many options. Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
So, can we talk about Egypt really quick? I know we're running long, but I'm so incredibly fascinated. Tell me about like the trip because you've done it before, right?
No, actually, I
Oh,
haven't.
you've never
Not
done
this
it
one.
before.
It'll be my first time actually putting my feet in the earth in Egypt, though these feet, I feel
Yes.
like I've lived
Yes.
many-
Right.
yeah, I've lived many lifetimes in ancient Egypt. I know this. I've always known this. I've had memories since forever about, being a priestess, being there, being in the temples. Well, I guess I want to touch on like the why now for me
Hmm.
because it is a place that's been calling me for a very long time, and I still have so many sites to go to. Like part of my soul mission here is grid work on these portal sites, helping to
Yeah.
activate the land to, receive the codes and carry them forth. And, you don't have to physically go to these sites to do this. And, there's just something unique in doing the
Super
actual
fun too.
physical. Yeah, doing it's super fun, exactly. But, when I got the download to go this year specifically and to bring a group, this year specifically around this time, I actually didn't even know that it was going to be happening, which just a few days ago, I think it was the 1st of November, that the Grand Egyptian Museum opened and they had
Yes.
yes, they had this massive ceremony and all these powerful, powerful, influential people from all over the world were there. And, they were celebrating, they were activating. There's all these ancient artifacts that had gotten taken out of Egypt that are now like by law having to get brought back. And so it's just like it just really felt for me it's like it's a coming home. It's like souls from all over, from all dimensions, all places, all walks, just like coming to these ancient lands and to connect back into what I've been feeling is like the original blueprint that exists there, kind of, without any distortion. Because just like with anything that's super powerful, hopefully this won't be the case forevermore. My intention is to shift it, but historically, a lot of power has been misused. And it feels to me like somewhere along the lines, there were some distortions that kind of came in, especially in those ancient times.
Yeah.
And I won't get into that too deeply, but it's like there's something about for many of us going back, showing up, being willing to say, like, I want to be a part of the reset. But it's like
Mm.
it's not just a reset. It's like you hit the reset button, but the whole system got an upgrade, It's like,
Yeah. Like a refresh,
yeah, ancient
a
is
glow up.
some new. Yes, the glow up. So that's kind of it. I mean, it feels to me like a service based journey, but also in that, right? Anytime you show up in service to the whole, you are receiving your individual gifts in that. And yeah, I mean, there's just so much. It's so multi-layered. I mean, I think anyone who's ever seen an image of Egypt, of any of the temples, not just the Great Pyramids, can see the bigness of it
Oh,
and
yeah.
magnitude of these places. And so for me, I also feel like I'm kind of here not just to help people like really reconnect with themselves and their authenticity, but then to be very out with it, to be seen, to be visible, to have impact, to leave a legacy. And I'm just like, what better place to go than Egypt, where these sites are just beyond life? This just the
Yeah.
size and the magnitude of these temples is like enough to shift your DNA when you meet
I mean,
them.
talk about ancient energy and feeling all of that too. I can't even imagine. I cannot wait to hear how it went. It
I'm so
sounds
excited.
so
We
cool.
we actually just had a call earlier today. I met with the group on Zoom and I brought through some
Oh,
transmissions and we all connected and it just feels also really sweet, like a homecoming, like a holding, like a mama being like, come, get nourished, receive. I mean, obviously there's more layers to it,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're sold out by now, right?
I
Or
am
actually,
not. I am not, and the doors are not closed. And hopefully, this episode will release soon. And
yeah, maybe I'll push this out a little sooner.
yeah, it's we still have a little bit more space, and I'm like, as a business owner, I think anyone who's here who has ever led retreats, like, for your nervous system, it's helpful to close the doors like a couple weeks before.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
this journey for me has already been an initiation. And one of the parts is like, no, you're going to keep the doors open and you're going to
Yeah.
get all the pieces clicked and loaded. I mean, I have a whole team there that's helping curate it. So it's not like it's all on me to get everything finalized in the snap of the moment.
Yeah. And I'm sure everyone that's supposed to be there will be there and it'll be amazing. We're doing it's funny the way your first retreat came together because my first retreat came together the same way. My girlfriend and I had both been planning to do an Italian, a, a Tuscany retreat. And
Ooh,
I just love the northern parts of Italy. That's where my family's from. And we were talking and we were sharing resources and I was like, why don't we just do this together? And she was like, oh, yes. So yeah, we're doing our first retreat in May 2027, I think was
okay.
so
You
petrified, but super excited.
That's so exciting. Italy is just so
I love it
magical.
there.
Me
It
too.
is. There was just nothing. I've never experienced anything like that where I just I don't know. It just opened up something inside of me that made me almost like uncomfortably excited about seeing more and more and more and more. Like I want to go everywhere and there's just not enough time.
I so get that.
Yeah, yeah. But then I also, love being a mom. I have teenagers so it's like this duality of like having, spending some of my time here and knowing that like there are seasons for things and just trusting that when these things are supposed to, because we were actually supposed to go to Italy the first time in 2020. It was February 19th and everything. My husband is like a tech nerd and he was following the numbers and he's like, we're not going. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's nothing. It's not a big deal. And because it hadn't hit the US yet. And he's like, I'm telling you, I'm looking at these numbers. And then sure enough, and I was like, but then when we did go, it was so perfect. And then we were able to bring our kids a couple of years later. So it's, yeah, I'm obsessed with traveling now.
Good. Well, hopefully we'll meet
Yes.
on one of these journeys.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, if like I had a little more time before Egypt, I told my husband, I was like, dude,
I'm chuckling because the one meme I like always send to people, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's something like the line something like, me, just be normal this time. And then it's like an alien with its arms out. Time is an illusion.
yeah. Well, my sister sent me a meme the other day and it was like me never wants to leave the house. Also me, international travel is the only way I'll leave. One last question. We have this thing called a lift kit. A lift kit is something that, you're just having a tough day and you need something that's just going to pick you up. For me, that's oftentimes like dancing to Harry Styles in my kitchen, but something that doesn't take a whole lot of effort, but that will kind of bring you out of your little funk. Is there something in your practice that you can add to our collective lift kit?
Well, I mean, dancing in the kitchen to Harry Styles would be one of my first go-tos. So
Good one.
you named that one. I think just dancing in general, like any kind of non-linear dancing to a joyful song is so beautiful. But I like to, if you can, get outside, put your feet in the earth and, get some sunshine if it's available to you. If not, you can do this from anywhere. But I like to just like ground myself into the earth and then make sound. Like for however long, you just take a breath in and you just exhale. Ah, you make a sound, or you can like if say your heart's feeling a little tight or achy, you can breathe into the heart and you can like let the sound out of the heart. So it's kind of a little bit more of a release process in that. But I just like to
Mhm.
do that for however long I can or want to, and then I just like shake it out, and then that's one of my favorite ways to upshift.
Well, we'll have to add that to the digital lift kit and we'll attribute it to you for sure.
Beautiful.
So everyone can find you. Where do you hang out online? We're also going to have all your links in the show notes, but tell us all the things. And you also have something coming up too. Tell us about that as well.
Okay. Well, I do have the Embodied Akashic Healing certification
Yes.
cohort. So I will be teaching the lineage that we discussed on this podcast to a small group. I like to limit it to 6 people. There's currently 4 more spots available. We're looking at starting sometime in December, though it may get pushed to January. Yeah, and I'm still, onboarding people for that journey. I'm also right now offering that if anyone wants to come and experience the lineage, like one-on-one with me, you can book your one-on-one session. And then if you decide to do the certification, I will credit the session investment toward the certification.
Oh, that's
And
great.
it's on
Oh,
Instagram. And I do have a freebie as well
yes.
for everybody who's catching this show, it's a 25-minute session where we do a bit of like movement medicine into like a deep soul connection meditation. And then I bring through some of the Dove Codex sound healing. So it's like a nice little sample platter of some of the things that you might experience with me in other containers. And we'll make sure that link gets dropped here too. Yeah, and you can find me at ginastarbuckcoaching.com, or it's actually probably easier to reach me or follow me on Instagram at Gina Starbuck. I'm very, very active on IG and sharing about all the beautiful things that I'm up to pretty much all the time.
Thank you so much for being here. It was just such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. It's been so beautiful to meet you and share this space with you.
Thank you so much for sharing your time and all of your beautiful wisdom.